So, welcome back. Carrying on with Buddha's technique and practice of counselling as depicted in the Pali Canon by the great Dr. Jenny Quek. This is a very intensive and long research work that she did in Sri Lanka as her PhD thesis. So without much further ado, I just introduce myself. I'm Brother Ben, Bhante van Rakkhita. And just a quick disclaimer, I'm not claiming to be a highly qualified mental health professional. I think it's a great work and I want to share it with people. It's not easily available online yet. And so I think it's an important work which spans between the Pali Canon, ancient text, ancient Buddhist traditional text, and quite contemporary psychology and counselling and therapeutic knowledge. So let's carry on. We're going to go ahead with chapter 3 now. So continuing. The Buddha's role as therapist, counsellor, and also teacher. A quote. What Chunda should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you. The Pali from that. Yang ko chunda satara karaniyang hete sina anukampakena anukampang upadaya katang wotang maya. From the Majjhima Nikaya 1, page 46. That's from the Saleka Sutta. The Buddha's career as a therapist or counsellor has been clearly stated by the Buddha himself. Among many qualities that qualify the unique mission of the Buddha, he introduced himself as a delineator of the way not delineated before. The quote there from the Samyutta Nikaya 3, page 66. Anakatasa magasa akata. Perhaps the Dhammapada describes this quality of the Buddhas more acutely and states, you yourself have to do what is to be done. Tathagatas only point the way. The note there from Dhammapada 276. Tumhe hi kichang atapang akataro tathagata. And a note, Venerable Narada translates the word akataro as teachers in his Dhammapada translation. In the eyes of the others too, the Buddha is a teacher who delineates the way. Akatarang pavatarang sabadamana paragung, from the Sutta Nipata 167. The Buddha's frame of mind on counselling and the role to be played by the client are illustrated distinctly in a dialogue with the Brahmin Ganaka Moggallana. He asks the Buddha whether all who had been counselled and guided by the Buddha attained the goal he showed them. The Buddha asked a counter question and a dialogue continued. The Buddha asks him whether he is familiar with the road leading to Rajagaha. When he replies in the affirmative, then the Buddha asks him if he is asked the direction to Rajagaha, and since he is familiar with the road, will he give directions with all the landmarks and signs that are along the road, naming villages, lovely parks, groves, meadows, ponds, junctions, left turns and right turns in detail accurately. A person who listens to his directions goes accordingly and arrives in Rajagaha safely. Another, in spite of his clear directions, taking a wrong turn due to some reason or other, loses the way and does not arrive in Rajagaha. The Buddha asks the Brahmin, who would be responsible? Then the Brahmin replies that he is not responsible for that, because he is only a delineator of the way, Magakayi. Since the person has not followed his instruction, so he is not able to arrive in Rajagaha, and for which he is not at fault. Then the Buddha says that he is also a delineator of the way, and that his mission is to show the way, and the individual concerned has the responsibility to follow the way to the goal. The note there, Ganaka Moggallana Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya 3, page 6 to 7. According to Buddhist texts, the word closest to counselling is upadisati, from the noun upadesa. And this is shown in Jataka 5, page 457, Milinda, Questions, page 21, Petavatu Commentary, page 26, and the Katavatu Commentary, page 100. There are many nominal and verbal forms denoting the Buddha's career as teacher and also counsellor or guide. Among the verbs, advises or vadati, teaches, anusasati, declares, desati, and points out, adisati, can be cited. In an often recurring stock phrase, the Buddha's scheme of teaching is described as he proclaims achikati, declares desati, reveals panyapeti, sets forth patapeti, explains vivarati, analyzes vibhajati, lays bare, utani karoti, says behold, pasata. This is from the Samyutta Nikaya number 2, page 25, and the Anguttara Ones, page 286. Achikati, desati, panyapati, patapati, vivarati, vibhajati, utani, karoti, pasatati, aha. What is significant in this phraseology is there is no coercion on the part of the Buddha, and the last verb, behold, is to make the purpose of the explanation clear. According to the context of the descriptions, all these verbal forms amount to the import and purpose of counselling. At the end of a session with one or more interlocutors, the Buddha's successful modus operandi is often recorded with the expression of he showed, sandasesi, inspired, samadapesi, stimulated, samutajasi, and gladdened, sampahangsesi. The concept of counselling is implicit mainly in the expressions denoting teacher, as well as in the discourses that deal with the mission of a teacher and methods employed by him, which are scattered all over the scriptures. The Buddha is introduced as the teacher of gods and men, Satta Deva Manosanang. Kevada, a lay follower of the Buddha, wanted the Buddha to ask a monk to perform a psychic miracle in order to attract more people of Nalanda to accept the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha said there are only 3 miracles. 1, the miracle of psychic power, idipatiharya. 2, the miracle of thought reading, adesana patiharya. And 3, the miracle of teaching, anusasani patiharya. And the note that comes from the Kevada Sutta in the Digha Nikaya 1, page 211. Professor Rhys Davids translates the word anusasani as education. Out of these 3, he practiced only the 3rd. On another occasion, he explained this to the Brahmin Sangarava as well. The note that comes from Anguttara Nikaya 1, page 153. The incident graphically illustrates the fact that the Buddha was committed to illuminating others and not to winning followers through undue means, as he claimed he has good reasons for him to counsel others. It is with full comprehension, abhinyaya, kausalya, sanidhanam, and meaningfully, sapatiharya, he instructs others. The note there, that's from Majjhima Nikaya 2, page 9. The application of causality or conditionality as well as relativity to analyze every physical and mental phenomenon is given a predominant place in the Buddha's approach. The Buddha followed 2 methods of counseling as well as teaching according to the circumstance. The concise method, sankitena, and the detailed method, vitarena. The note that comes from Anguttara Nikaya 1, page 53. Once the Buddha addressed the Venerable Mahamoggallana and explained that there are 5 kinds of impure teachers. They are teachers who have flaws in their modes of behavior, or teaching, or exposition, or knowledge, or insight. Disciples have to ward such a teacher from his followers so that they should know his weaknesses. The teacher also expects that from his disciples. But in the case of the Buddha, since the Buddha is pure in all respects, he does not expect his disciples to ward him from lay devotees. The note there, that comes from Anguttara Nikaya 3, page 124. Buddha as physician as well as surgeon of the mind and body. In the canon, there are instances of applying counselling formally as well as informally, and we will discuss them in relevant contexts in the following pages. At the same time, for a correct evaluation of facts, it is necessary to explore the attitude, motivational force, and the nature of commitment discernible in the life of the Buddha. It is interesting to note how the psychotherapeutic attitude of the Buddha, who prescribed meditation for healing psychological ills, is introduced by 2 epithets, physician, Bisaka, and surgeon, Salakata, in the canon. That's from the Itivuttaka, page 101. In fact, these 2 words have been introduced as appellations applied to the Buddha. The note there, that's from Majjhima Nikaya 2, page 260. Also Anguttara 4, page 340. Bisako salakato ti tathāgatassa adivachanam. These terms illustrate the Buddha's career as an excellent psychotherapist who prescribed different antidotes for different ailments of the mind and body. The analogy of physician and medication exhibits the Buddha's mission of serving humanity as a practitioner of client-centered therapy. Just like a medicine given at a particular time for a given sickness, his counsel suited the temperament of the client and the occasion. This tendency is further elaborated by the Buddha, drawing parallelism between sweet and bitter medicines, which are given for different kinds of ailments. As the text records, suppose a man who is suffering from jaundice is given a cup of fermented urine mixed with various medicines. Its color, taste, and smell may not be palatable to him. After reflecting for a while, he drinks it and is cured. It is an undertaking that is painful at present and ripens in the future as pleasure. Suppose there is a man who is suffering from dysentery, and he is given a cup of curd mixed with honey, ghee, and molasses mixed together. Its color, taste, and smell are agreeable to him. After reflecting a while, he drinks it and becomes well. It is an undertaking that is pleasant now and ripens in the future as pleasure. That's from the Maha Karma Samadhana Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 1, page 316 to 317. How the Buddha can be considered as a surgeon is illustrated in another discourse. Here, the simile of a man wounded by an arrow or a dart, and a surgeon attending on him is called. In the simile, the wounded man is the client, and the surgeon attending to him is the Buddha. Identifying the constituent parts of the simile, the Buddha compares the wound to 6 internal sense bases of an individual. The poison in the body, or the blood poisoning caused by the dart, septicemia, is a term for ignorance. The dart, or arrow, is craving. The surgeon's probe is a term for mindfulness. The scalpel is noble wisdom, and the surgeon is the Tathagata, the accomplished one, the fully enlightened one. The discourse describes the surgeon's healing process further and says, the surgeon would cut around the opening of the wound with a scalpel. Then he would probe for the dart or the arrow with a probe. Then he would pull out the dart and expel the poisonous humor without leaving a trace of it behind. Knowing that no trace of it is left behind, he would say, "Good man, the dart has been pulled out from you. The poisonous humor has been expelled with no trace left behind, and it is incapable of harming you. Eat only suitable food. Do not eat unsuitable food, or else the wound may suppurate. From time to time, wash the wound, and from time to time, anoint its opening, so that pus and blood do not cover the opening of the wound. Do not walk around in the wind and sun, or else dust and dirt may infect the opening of the wound. Take care of your wound, good man, and see to it that the wound heals." The note, that is from Sunakata Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 2, page 259 to 260. And you can also see P. Vajnanarama's book, Dharma Medicine and Sociology in Chapter 2. The process, as described in the discourse, provides us with a clear view of the holistic Buddhist methodology of counselling. It is interesting to note that the Buddha has made provisions for both physical health and mental health of his disciples. The Besaja Khandaka of the Mahavagapali reveals how he took steps to ensure that his disciples are physically fit to carry out their obligations as monks and nuns. And since the Buddha's major concern is their mental health, therefore the various methods he adopted are varied and are recorded in various parts of the Buddhist canon. Once the Buddha addressed the monks and he showed graphically how humans are often sick mentally rather than physically. There are to be seen beings who can admit freedom from suffering from bodily disease for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, 4, 5 or 10, 20, 30 or 50 years. But monks, those beings are hard to find in the world who can admit freedom from mental disease, even for 1 moment, save only those in whom the defilements have been destroyed. That's from Anguttara 2, page 143. These instances show that the Buddha knew how to analyze a problem and also to resolve it by counseling the person concerned. Always the client's cooperation is anticipated for the success of the considerations suggested. Mental health influences physical health. Wrong perception makes a person sick in the mind. Therefore, the importance of maintaining mental health with the correct perception is given a predominant place in the Buddha's dialogues. Since wrong perception makes a man sick mentally, even in one's old age, one can maintain one's mental health by means of correct perception. This has been shown when the householder Nakula Pita said to the Buddha that he was aged, advanced in years, old, and had lived out his span of life, sick and always ailing. The Buddha told him that if a person who took material form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness as substantial, he would be sick in mind. Although physical health begins to deteriorate in old age, one could still maintain mental health through correct and right perception. The note there from Samyutta Nikaya 3, page 1. Buddhism emphasizes the fact that perception as a psychological factor is prominent in making a person physically and psychologically sick, which will be discussed in a later chapter. Motivational force, compassion. The place that compassion occupies in counselling has been valued highly. To be the ideal or competent counsellor, one should be compassionate towards his clients. Compassion is described as sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering or misfortune of others. Empathy is to understand and share the feeling of others. The note there, see the concise Oxford Dictionary's definition. The Abhidhana Padipika gives 5 words denoting compassion. Daya, Anukampa, Karunā, and Anudaya. That's from the Abhidhana Padipika, page 160. The Buddha is often referred to as the embodiment of wisdom, panya, and compassion, karunā. The important role that compassion plays in psychotherapy and counselling has been emphasised by Gerald Corey. Says, the kind of person the therapist is, the ways of being that he or she models, is the most critical factor affecting the client and promoting change. If practitioners possess wide knowledge, both theoretical and practical, and yet lack human qualities of compassion, caring, good faith, honesty, realness, and sensitivity, they are mere technicians. In my judgment, those who function exclusively as technicians do not make a significant difference in the lives. And that note from Gerald Corey, Theory and Practice of Counselling and Psychotherapy. The note there, that is from Gerald Corey, Theory and Practice of Counselling and Psychotherapy. The life of the Buddha exemplifies the perfect balance of these two fundamental characteristics in him. The balance is not that of compromise, but of complementary nature to each other. Many are the canonical references revealing how the Buddha showered his compassion to those who were in need of attention. In the Theragatha, Chulapantaka says, and there he came to me, the Exalted One, and laid his hand upon my head, and took my arm, and to the garden led me back. To me the Master, in his kindness, gave a napkin for the feet, and bade me thus, fix your mind on this clean thing the while, well concentrated thou dost sit apart. The Pali for that, which comes from the Theragatha, page 559 to 560, Bhagava tata agachi, sisang mayang paramasi, bahaya mang gahetwana, sangaramang pavaseya, anukampaya me sata padasi, pada punchaning, etang sudang aditehi, ekamantang svadihitang. When Chulapantaka was told to leave the monastery by his elder brother because he was making slow progress, he was reluctant to leave and felt miserable. And as he was standing at the gateway, the Buddha came to him and put his hand on his head to comfort him, and then led him by the hand back to the monastery. In order to help Chulapantaka, the Buddha gave him a piece of cloth that was meant for cleaning the feet and told him to fix his attention on it. And with this skillful means of the Buddha, Chulapantaka became enlightened that very day. Acharya Buddhaghosa, elaborating on why the Buddha is called endowed with knowledge and virtuous conduct, Vicca Charana Sampano, explains Vidya as clear vision or knowledge, as popularly translated, and Charana as virtuous conduct. Accordingly, the aspect of Panya is engulfed in Vidya, while karunā in Charana. Basing his description on the account given in the Patisambhida Magga, he says, herein the Blessed One's possession of clear vision consists in the fulfillment of omniscience, the note that comes from Patisambhida Magga 1, page 131, while his possession of conduct consists in the fulfillment of the great compassion. The note that comes from Patisambhida Magga 1, page 126. He knows through compassion what is good and harmful for all beings, and through compassion he warns them of harm and exhorts them to do good. That is how he is possessed of clear vision and conduct, which is why his disciples have entered upon the good way, as the self-mortifying disciples of those who are not those possessed of clear vision and conduct have done. The note from Visuddhimagga, page 202 to 203, 7, 31-32, and here she has followed the translation of the text by Venerable Jnana Moli. According to Acharya Buddhaghosa, the virtuous conduct or charana embraces all 15 qualities, namely moral integrity, guarding the doors of sense faculties, knowledge of the right amount in eating, devotion to wakefulness, 7 good states, that is, confidence, conscience, shame, learning, energy, mindfulness, and understanding, and the 4 meditative absorptions of the fine material sphere. The sub-commentary, the Paramatta Manjusa, provides us with more information about the Buddha's compassion. According to its long description, out of many characteristics, he is compassionate because he took no delight in cruelty to others, did not torment others. He became the world's helper. He had humility. He helped all beings as a father, and he was helpful to all beings. The note there, that is from the Paramatta Manjusa, pages 192, 193. Quoting the Vibhanga on page 273, the Visuddhimagga states that on seeing a wretched man, unfortunate, in every way a fit object for compassion, unsightly, reduced to utter misery, his hand and feet cut off, sitting in the shelter for the helpless, with a pot placed before him, with a mass of maggots oozing from his arms and legs, and moaning, compassion should be felt for him in this way. This being has indeed been reduced to misery. If only he could be freed from his suffering. If one does not encounter such a person, then one should arouse compassion for an evildoer, even though he is happy. Even though he is happy, he should be compared to a person to be executed. The process of pervading compassion does not stop there. Then one should arouse compassion for a dear person, and next for a neutral person, a hostile person, successively in the same way. The note there, that's from Visuddhimagga, page 314 to 315. Just as we find in many instances in the canon, the Visuddhimagga also, in order to bring about the full import of the Buddhist concept of compassion, it defines the term further by giving an ethical etymology to it, and says that when there is suffering in others, it causes, karoti, good people's hearts to be moved, kampana. Thus, it is compassion, karunā, or alternatively, it combats, kinati, others' suffering, attacks and demolishes it. Thus it is compassion, karunā. The concept is analyzed further in accordance with the traditional commentarial method of analyzing concepts. Characteristic, lakkhana, function, rasa, manifestation, pachupatthana, and proximate cause, padatthana. It has the characteristic of promoting the aspect of alleviating suffering. Its function rests in not bearing others' suffering. It is manifested as non-cruelty, vihingsa. Proximate cause is to see helplessness in those overwhelmed by suffering. The note there, that comes from Visuddhimagga, page 318. The analysis brings the scope and nature of compassion into focus properly. The sub-commentary states that the Blessed One's compassion is devoid of sentimental affection or sorrow, so his understanding was free from the thoughts of I and mine. The note that comes from the Paramatta Manjusa, page 193. Thus, empty listening is second nature to the Buddha. According to Mrs. Rhys-Davids, the term anukampa, which appears in the first mission charter for the first time, is genuinely a Sakyan discovery. It's in the Vinaya, first book, page 21, says here, the Pali, Charita Bhikkhave Charikang Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Loka Nukampaya Ataya Hitaya Sukhaya Deva Manusanam. Again, that's from the Vinaya, first book, page 21. She analyzes the term and gives the meaning vibrating because of, anu, after, along or toward. The note there, that is from Mrs. Rhys-Davids, The Birth of Indian Psychology and Its Development in Buddhism, page 301 to 302. Thus, anukampa is a vibrating impulse that arises because of others who are in distress. In the Saleka Sutta, Buddha addresses Venerable Chunda and says that whatever should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that has been done for. And that's from the Saleka Sutta, which is in Majjhima Nikaya 1, page 46. Acharya Buddhaghosa was very pertinent about highlighting these prominent qualities of the Buddha by stating them in his stanzas of salutation to the Buddha in colophons written for Pali commentaries. He states that he pays homage to the Buddha who has put an end to the cycle of existence, the teacher of gods and men in the world, who has a heart cooled with compassion and a mind that dispels the darkness of ignorance. This is from the Vinaya commentary, the Atthaka, volume 1, page 1, the colophon. Karunā sita lahadayang, panya pajota vihata moha tamang, sarana mara loka garung, vande sugating gati vimutang. Compassion in right thought and sublime abodes. In the threefold classification of right thought, sama sankappa, in the Noble Eightfold Path, the thoughts of goodwill, avyapada sankappa, and thoughts of harmlessness, avihingsa sankappa, denote loving kindness, metta, and compassion, karunā. In fact, these two appear as the first two of the description of sublime abodes, Brahma Vihara. They are followed by 2 stages and together are called unlimited, apamanya. These qualities help one to be non-judgmental. Konza, while discussing the importance of the sublime abodes, says that the essential purpose of those exercises is to reduce the boundaries between oneself and other people, be they very dear, indifferent, or hostile. That's from Edward Konza in Buddhism, Its Essence and Development, page 102. They correspond to thoughts of goodwill and thoughts of harmlessness in the right thought of the path. And that comes from Venerable Piyadasi, The Buddha's Ancient Path, page 111. The stereotype text on the development of sublime abodes, applying to 4 abodes, runs thus. And this comes from Venerable Ñāṇatiloka in the Buddhist Dictionary, page 43. There, O monks, the monk with a mind full of loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity, pervading first one direction, then a second one, then a third one, then the 4th one, just so above, below, and all around, and everywhere identifying himself with all. He is pervading the whole world with mind full of loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity, with mind wide, developed, unbounded, free from hate and ill will. Venerable Narada explains the nature of compassion as depicted in Buddhism as a compassionate one is as soft as a flower. He cannot bear the suffering of others. He might at times even go to the extent of sacrificing his own life to alleviate the sufferings of others. In every Jataka story, it is evident that the Bodhisattva endeavored his best to help the distressed and the forlorn, and to promote their happiness in every possible way. And that's from Venerable Narada, the Buddha and His Teachings, page 327. He describes the nature of the Buddhist concept further and says that compassion compels one to serve others with altruistic motives. A truly compassionate one lives not for oneself, but for others. He seeks opportunities to serve others, expecting nothing in return, not even gratitude. And that's from the same book, The Buddha and His Teachings, page 629. The wisdom and compassion of the Buddha is differentiated as great wisdom, mahapanya, and great compassion, karunā. And the Buddha is referred to as the great compassionate one, karunika. Once, Anathapindika, a millionaire, who is the foremost benefactor of the dispensation, asked the Buddha whether the Buddha is not compassionate towards all living beings. When the Buddha replies that he is compassionate towards all living beings, he asks why then the Buddha teaches Dharma thoroughly to some, yet not so thoroughly to others. Illustrating the answer with a simile, the Buddha asks him that suppose there were 3 fields, one excellent, one of average quality, and one inferior, rough, salty, and having bad soil, which will be the field that the farmer will select first to sow the seeds? As can be expected, the millionaire replies that the farmer will first select the excellent one, and then the mediocre one, and lastly the inferior one. The Buddha then tells Anathapindika that the monks and the nuns in the dispensation are like the excellent field. Both male and female devotees are like mediocre field, and those ascetics and Brahmins and wanderers of other persuasions are like the inferior field. And the Buddha stresses the fact that he will teach without any distinction. The discussion exemplifies the Buddha's unqualified compassion towards all without exception. The note there that comes from Samyutta 4, page 314 to 318. In this connection, the Buddha has drawn another simile of water pots, one without cracks, one without cracks but which lets water seep through and escape, and a third with cracks. Compassion, karunā, as skillful means, upāya, kausalya. It is interesting to note how Mahayana views the concept of compassion. Compassion is referred to as skillful means, or skill in means, or expedient means, upāya, kausalya, in Mahayana, and described as strategies, as methods, devices designed according to the inclinations, capacities, circumstances, likes and dislikes of each sentient being, so as to rescue and lead that sentient being to enlightenment. Skill in means occupies a prominent place in the 6 perfections in Mahayana. Sometimes the 6th, the perfection of wisdom, is amplified into another 4 subsidiaries called skill in means, power over obstacles, spiritual aspiration, and knowledge. The Skill in Means Sutra, or the Upāya Kausalya Sutra, supposed to have been in the 1st century BC, illustrates the theme of skill in means with stories related as explanations given to inquisitive devotees. The first part of the book is devoted to bringing out skill in means of the Bodhisattva, and the second part relates those of Sakyamuni. The Bodhisattva's wandering in life's cycle, birth, renunciation, practicing of austerities, etc., are interpreted as skill in means. The Bodhisattva sacrificed his celibacy to satisfy the carnal desire of a woman who was after him. The note there: long ago, the Bodhisattva was born as Brahmin called Jyotis. He practiced celibacy in the forest for 42,000 years. One day, he came out of the forest and was walking in the capital, Surashtra. a female water carrier, saw him and fell in love with him and insisted that he marry her. Jyotis thought that it was not proper for him to break his vow of celibacy that he had protected for such a long period, and rejected her proposal outright. The woman said, "If I do not get you, I will die." He pulled himself forcibly away, rejecting the woman, and fled. He barely took 7 steps when compassion arose in him. He thought, "I may go to hell for breaking my vow of celibacy, but I can bear to experience the pains of hell. Let this woman not die, but be happy." He returned and took the woman by the hand, and thereafter lived the life of a householder for 12 years with the woman. The UKS, page 34. In another story, the Buddha relates how he, in a previous life, murdered a robber in a ship to save 500 inmates there. The note: the Bodhisattva was the captain of a ship, and 500 merchants were sailing with him. A robber carrying a spear had also come on board. He was planning to kill all the inmates and take away all their possessions. Deities who dwelt in the ocean showed this to the captain in a dream. The captain, having considered the amount of suffering that the robber had to undergo in purgatory, stabbed and killed the robber out of compassion and saved the robber from eons of suffering in purgatory, and also the lives of inmates who were to be the 500 future Buddhas in the auspicious eon. Again, that from the UKS, page 73 and 74. These may involve philosophical and ethical problems, but as it seems they are subservient to the predominant motive of compassion. Mark Tatz, who translated the Upāya Kausalya Sutra, the UKS, says in his introduction to the text that the concept of perfect wisdom and skill in means in early Mahayana are complementary and nearly co-arising. In later literature, tension between perfect wisdom and skill drives the Bodhisattva career. Accordingly, wisdom is the 6th perfection, while skill in means subsumes the initial 5. The note there, Mark Tatz, Skill in Means Sutra, Introduction, page 3. Konza also pointed out that with the development of Mahayana, compassion came to be ranked as equal with wisdom. The note there from Edward Konza in Buddhism, Its Essence and Development. In the Theragatha, the Buddha is referred to as skilled in means, upāya kausalya. The note there, and that is from the Theragatha 158. Also in the Nava Sutta of the Sutta Nipata, we have the reference skillful knower of means, upāyanyu kausalo. The note that is from the Sutta Nipata 321. But presumably the term has not been used in the technical sense that it had acquired in later Mahayana. The psychotherapist Mark Epstein examines the two primary energy currents generated by wisdom and compassion in the psychic nervous system, and says that they are united in advanced meditative attainments as preserved in the Buddhist tantric practices in Tibet, and are always explicitly identified with the forces of wisdom and compassion. He analyzes these two concepts further and distinguishes the import of Buddhist concept from that of psychoanalytic concept, and says, psychoanalysis describes these two currents in their infantile states as ego and object libido, while Buddhism praises them in their sublimated states as wisdom and compassion. Wisdom is, after all, sublimated ego libido. It is investment in the self turned out. The transformation of narcissism and the eradication of ignorance about the nature of the self. And that's from Mark Epstein, Thoughts Without a Thinker, page 83. Accordingly, he recognizes the unity of these two concepts on a higher level and shows how they are complementary to each other. A life devoted to others' welfare. The Buddha's daily timetable, as given in the Digha Nikaya Atthika, throws a flood of light on an aspect of the boundless compassion of the Buddha, who devoted his time and energy for the sake of others' welfare. He discharged his duties methodically, strictly adhering to a schedule. According to the description, his day was divided into 5 parts. 1, the forenoon session. 2, the afternoon session. 3, the first watch of the night. 4, the middle watch. 5, the last watch. Daily, in the wee hours of the morning, he attains ecstasy of great compassion, Maha Karuna Samapati, radiating his thoughts of compassion towards all beings, and surveys the world with Buddha vision to see whether he could be of service to anybody on that particular day. Except for a few hours spent for his physical needs, most of the time was spent for others' well-being. The note there, that is from the Digha Nikaya commentary, the Atthika 1, page 45 to 47. And you can also see the Buddha and his teachings by Venerable Narada, page 226 to 232. Touring for meeting clients. His tours from time to time are also designed to meet the clients in need of help. The Digha Nikaya commentary distinguishes 2 kinds of his tours and says that the Buddha used to travel for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 months interval for 4 reasons: as a mild exercise, or for a definite objective in view, or for levying rules of discipline, or to enlighten those who are matured for enlightenment. The The commentary further gives another 3 sets of alternative reasons to instruct people to observe 5 precepts, or to encourage them to practice the 8 meditative absorptions, or to make them realize 8 paths and fruits of attainments. They are speedy, turita charika, and leisurely, aturita charika, tours. Meeting the deserving clients directly is the former. The latter is the gradual meetings with them. The note there, that is from the Digha Atthika, the commentary on the Digha Nikaya 1, page 242 to 243. 4 methods of delivery and 4 modes of explanation. According to Digha Nikaya commentary, the Buddha has pursued one of the following 4 methods of delivery. 1. On his own accord, attajasaya. 2. Knowing the intention of others, parajasaya. 3. As an answer to a question, puchavasika. And 4. According to the circumstance, atupatika. The note that is from the Digha commentary 1, page 50 to 51. The Digha Atthika gives a long list of discourses related to each method. The 4 modes of explanation of problems have a great relevance to our study of Buddhist techniques of counselling. It brings into focus how the Buddha analysed the facts before him and helped clients resolve their issues. It lays out the plan for a counsellor to approach his client's problem and evaluate it critically for effective counselling. The 4 modes are stated thus. 1. Problems that ought to be solved categorically. Ekang savya karunā. 2. Problems that ought to be solved with counter-questions. Patipuchavya karunā. 3. Problems that ought to be set aside. Tapaniya. And 4. Problems that should be solved analytically. Vibhaja vyakaraniya. And the note, that comes from Anguttara 2, page 46. Also, Digha Nikaya 3, page 229. Professor K.N. Jayatileke discusses the philosophical import of these 4 modes in Vida EBTK, page 281. Evidently, problems that are not complicated and not ambiguous, but direct and clear, can be resolved categorically. This kind of problem is well phrased and deserve straightforward explanations. Yet there are some other problems which the counsellor has to get clarified by asking counter-questions, which are necessary due to ambiguities of the original one. This type of questions may be asked by clients due to confused thinking or due to hidden agendas to baffle the counsellor. In such cases, the Buddha paraphrased the questions to make them clear and intelligible. In a way, it is an instance of gentle challenge by intervention, thereby helping the client to bring some undisclosed facts to light. Language can not only describe, but also distort and conceal. Hence, Gestalt therapy adopts this method to make the client aware of his language patterns and connect with his experience. The note there, see BTCPC, page 204. Rational emotive behavior therapy, introduced by Albert Ellis, stresses the fact that imprecise language is one of the causes of distorted thinking process. See the TPCP, page 306. Saying first what should have been said last is given as one of the instances of disputes. The note that comes from the Digha Nikaya 3, page 210. What the Buddha has said in the Aranavibhanga Sutta is significant in this connection. It highlights another aspect of using language. The Buddha says, one should not utter covert speech, and one should not utter overt, sharp speech. Here, monks, when one knows covert speech to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, one should on no account utter it. When one knows covert speech to be true, correct, unbeneficial, one should try not to utter it. But when one knows covert speech to be true, correct, and beneficial, one may utter it, knowing the time to do so. Same wordings are given with reference to overt, sharp speech, and the Buddha continues. One should speak unhurriedly, not hurriedly. Here, monks, when one speaks hurriedly, one's body grows tired and one's mind becomes excited. One's voice is strained and one's throat becomes hoarse. And the speech of one who speaks hurriedly is indistinct and hard to understand. Then the Buddha continued to draft the advantages of speaking unhurriedly, opposed to the above disadvantages of speaking hurriedly. The note that comes from Majjhima Nikaya 3, page 234 to 235. The questions ought to be set aside are misguided and the answers to them are misleading. Any attempt to answer them make clients more and more confused. Hence, any involvement in a problem beyond the issue in question leads to further complications of the client's mental setup. Further, some problems have to be analysed thoroughly before solutions are to be derived. The note there. Samidhi is said to have given a categorical reply to a question of a wandering ascetic, Potali-putta, which ought to have been replied after analysis. Majjhima Nikaya 3, page 207. Analysis is helpful for the therapist to excavate the underlying causes of the problem. Psychoanalytic theory of Freud widely uses analysis with the belief that successful guided analysis would result in significant modification of an individual's personality and character structure, removing instinctive fears and irrational guilt. The Upāya Raja Kumara Sutta sheds more light on the problem-solving aptitude of the Buddha. Prince Abhaya wanted to know whether an answer to a question put to the Buddha occurs on the spot, or the Buddha has given thought beforehand as to how he would answer a question of a particular nature. The Buddha puts a counter question to him to know whether he was conversant with the constituent parts of a chariot. When he replied in the affirmative, the Buddha explained to him that just as a person who was conversant with the parts of a chariot could answer impromptu a question on any part of a chariot, the Buddha could answer the questions on the spot, since he has fully penetrated the element of things. The note there, that's from Majjhima Nikaya 1, page 395 to 396. According to Buddhist counselling perspective, problem-solving skill is two-sided, since it can be effective and beneficial to both the counsellor and the client. It is interesting to note that behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy, as well as reality therapy stress the fact of developing problem-solving skill of clients. Since behavioral counselling does not place emphasis on experiencing catharsis, it aims at changing specific behaviours and problem-solving skills. Gerald Corey, Theory and Practice of Counselling and Psychotherapy, page 286. According to cognitive therapy, the clients are encouraged to form hypotheses of their own behaviour and to learn and employ specific problem-solving and coping skills. They are guided to discover themselves and acquire insight about the connection between their thinking and the ways they feel and act. From the same book by Gerald Corey, Theory and Practice of Counselling and Psychotherapy, page 312. Reality therapy also focuses on problem-solving therapy that tends to discourage exploration of deeper emotional issues. From the same book, Theory and Practice of Counselling and Psychotherapy, page 484. The discourse addressed to Prince Abhaya is significant in terms of the Buddha's way of unfolding a fact to a client. The prince visited the Buddha with the intention of making him confused, in a dilemma and defeat. He asked whether the Buddha would say anything unwelcome and disagreeable to others. The Buddha said outright that his question needed qualification, and instantly drew the prince's attention to the tender infant lying on his lap, and asked, What do you think, Prince? If, while you or your nurse was not attending to him, this child were to put a piece of stick or a pebble in his mouth, what would you do to him? Venerable Sir, I would take it out. If I could not take it out at once, I would take his head in my left hand and, crooking a finger of my right hand, I would take it out, even if it meant drawing blood. Why is that? Because I have compassion for the child. On the basis of the above explanation of the compassionate attitude of a father towards an infant, the Buddha then proceeded to qualify statements according to their truth value, advantage and disadvantage, pleasantness and unpleasantness, and agreeability and disagreeability, and laid down 6 possibilities. Accordingly, a statement may be 1. Untrue, incorrect, unbeneficial, unwelcome, disagreeable. 2. True, correct, unbeneficial, unwelcome, disagreeable. 3. True, correct, beneficial, unwelcome, disagreeable. 4. Untrue, incorrect, unbeneficial, welcome, agreeable. 5. True, correct, unbeneficial, welcome and agreeable. 6. True, correct, beneficial, welcome, agreeable. The note is from Majjhima Nikaya 1, page 392 to 396. The words used in the text are bhuta, abhuta, tacha, atacha, ata sanghita, anta sanghita, piya, apiya, and manapa, amanapa. Professor Jayatileke gives 2 more possibilities of the classification, which could be logically arrived at, and discusses the philosophical implications of the Buddha's attitude to truth at length. Veda EBTK, page 351. Out of these possibilities, the Buddha follows only the 3rd and the 6th. That is also only after he is convinced of the opportune time, karunā. In other words, whether it is agreeable or not agreeable to the person concerned, he awaits for the appropriate time to reveal it. The crux of the matter lies in the fact of knowing the opportune time of communicating an important issue with the client, lest he be emotionally upset. Francis Story wrote in Buddhism and Mental Therapy that revealing of the ugly aspects of the personality of clients, as practiced in Western psychoanalytic practice, results in disintegrating personality. The note there, that's from Francis Story in Dimensions of Buddhist Thought, BPS, Sri Lanka, 1985. As the above parable illustrates, whether it is welcome or unwelcome, agreeable or disagreeable, if it is true, correct and beneficial to the client, the Buddha would only disclose it to his client at the opportune time. The Buddha was gradual in his approach. In the descriptions of gradual method of instruction, anupubikata, and the standard method of instruction, samukangsika desana, which we come across often in the canon, we see how the Buddha implemented these two methods successively. There is a reference by a householder called Uga, revealing how the Buddha instructed him according to these two methods. He says, "The Blessed One gave me a gradual instruction, namely, a talk on giving, on virtue, on the heavenly worlds, on the danger and vanity and impurity of sensual pleasures, and on the advantage of renunciation. When he saw my mind was prepared, susceptible, free of hindrances, elevated and lucid, he revealed to me that Dhamma instruction, particularly to the Buddhas, namely suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path." The note there, that is from Anguttara Nikaya 3, page 184. Vida also GBW, page 115. Resistance to counselling. Resistance is said to be a concept fundamental to the practice of psychoanalysis. It is defined as anything that works against the progress of therapy and prevents the client from producing previously unconscious material. That's by Gerald Corey in TPCP, page 94. The Gestalt therapist, focusing on resistance to contact, describe 5 major channels of resistance that are challenged in Gestalt therapy. 1. Introjection. 2. Projection. 3. Retroflexion. 4. Deflection. And 5. Confluence. Introjection is the unconscious adoption of others' ideas or attitudes. Projection, being the reverse of introjection, it impairs one's ability to distinguish the inside world and the outside world. Accordingly, those attributes of our personality that are inconsistent with our self-image are disowned and put onto other people. Retroflexion is turning back to ourselves what we would like to do to someone else, or doing to ourselves what we would like someone else to do to us. Deflection is the process of distraction, so that it is difficult to maintain a sustained sense of contact. Confluence is a way of staying safe by going along with others and not expressing one's true feelings and opinions. The note there from page 200 and 201, Gerald Corey, TPCP. See also Polster and Polster, Therapy Without Resistance, page 259 to 277. Referring to a client he encountered, Epstein says that at a certain stage, the client had retreated to an angry, petulant and defensive position. Any attempt to reach out from that place evoked feelings of fear. He describes, quote, how ingenious and intransigent the ego's defenses can be. He says, this fear is what, in psychoanalytic circles, is often called resistance. The fearlessness of bare attention must take this very fear as object. In connecting it, the patient can then become more real. Some psychoanalytic schools have made the mistake of relentlessly attacking the resistance with the idea of releasing the underlying true self. This approach lacks the quality of tolerance that allows people to actually own their resistance, thereby evoking some grudging respect for their own involvement in creating it. Drawing the remedial approach from Buddhism, he concludes, from a Buddhist perspective, there is really nothing but resistance to be analyzed. When we can know our fear as fear and surround it with the patience of the Buddha, we can begin to rest in our own minds and approach those to whom we would like to feel close. The note there, that's from Mark Epstein, Thoughts Without a Thinker, page 120 to 121. The famous Kesi Sutta gives not only an insight into the Buddha's compassionate attitude towards counseling a client, but also the infallible ultimate step taken by the Buddha to tame a client whose inflated ego keeps resisting counseling. Kesi, the horse trainer, visited the Buddha, and on inquiry, he replied that he would train a tameable horse by mildness, also by harshness, also by both mildness and harshness. When he was asked what he did to a horse that did not submit to any of all those three alternative methods, he said that he would have destroyed him, lest there should be a discredit to his teacher's clan. Then asked the Buddha, who, being an unsurpassed trainer of men, how he would train a tameable man. The Buddha replied that he also followed the same three methods, and who did not submit to those three methods was destroyed. The Buddha further explained his three methods of training. This Kesi is the way by mildness. Thus is good conduct in body, thus is its result. Thus is the good conduct in speech, thus is its result. Thus is good conduct in thought, thus is its result. Thus are devas, and thus are men. This Kesi is the way by harshness. This is bad conduct in body, thus is its result. Thus is bad conduct in speech, thus is its result. Thus is bad conduct in thought, thus is its result. Thus is rebirth as an animal, thus is the realm of petas. Then the Buddha described the third method of both mildness and harshness, and said that one who did not submit to any one of the methods was destroyed, which he explained as refusal of further instruction and communication. The Tathagata and the fellow monks leading the noble life think it is not worthwhile to admonish him. Most certainly by this means, the client is given an opportunity for thoughtful reflection, yoni so manasikara, of his own conduct. Therefore, the refusal of instruction and communication are to be considered as informal. Buddhism identifies the underlying factor of resistance as ego conceit, asmimana, literally I am conceit, which exhibits as ahankara, the concept of I, as well as mamankara, the concept of mine, which may range from the gross pride and self-assertion to a subtle feeling of one's distinctiveness or superiority. It is the outcome of the inclination to measure, the root ma, to measure oneself with others. Usually, 3 aspects of it are given in Buddhism. It may manifest itself as a feeling of the equality conceit, sadisamana, and inferiority conceit, omana, or the superiority conceit, atimana. The note there, that is from the Anguttara Nikaya 6, page 49. All 5 channels of resistance mentioned in the Gestalt psychotherapy can be comfortably accommodated in the Buddhist concept of ego conceit. The story of Venerable Channa can be cited in this connection. He was Gautama's charioteer and companion who brought the horse from the stable and rode with him when he, Gautama, renounced the household life. Later, Channa joined the order, but he could not fulfill his obligations as a monk due to his egotistical pride of having close relationship with Buddha from the beginning. Once, when he committed a fault, he refused to acknowledge it. The matter was reported to the Buddha, who decreed an act of suspension, ukepniya karma, against him, forbidding him to eat or dwell with the Sangha. He had repeatedly reviled Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana. Later, Channa changed his residence, as he was boycotted everywhere he went. He returned to the original residence subdued and asked for a reprieve, which was granted. Nevertheless, again he became stubborn and quarrelsome. On the instruction of the Buddha, after his final passing away, the Sangha entrusted Venerable Ananda to inform him that the Sangha decreed on him the highest punishment, Brahmadanda, whereby all monks were forbidden to have anything whatsoever to do with him. Venerable Ananda expressed his hesitation to go meet him, saying that he was fierce and rough. Then he was asked to go along with many monks. When the penalty was communicated to him, his pride vanished and became very humble and unassuming. On realizing his vanity, he was reported to have fainted and fell, being hurt by the higher penalty and ashamed. Thereafter he resorted to earnest striving. Soon he became an arahant, upon which the penalty automatically lapsed. And that is from the Vinaya 2, page 23, the Anguttara 2, page 12, the Dhammapada commentary, the Atthaka 2, page 110 to 112, and the Theragatha commentary 1, page 166. A genuine example of the mechanism of ego is portrayed in the life of Devadatta, who was the maternal cousin of the Buddha. He was motivated by his objective to become the leader of the Sangha. When the Buddha was informed of his motive in advance by Venerable Moggallana, the Buddha replied that Devadatta would ultimately betray himself. He wanted the Buddha to relegate the power of leading the Sangha to him in view of the Buddha's advancing years. When the Buddha rejected his suggestion, he vowed vengeance and made several attempts on the life of the Buddha in vain. Then he planned to bring about a schism in the Sangha and deputized some of his followers to insist that the Buddha lay down 5 strict observances for the Sangha, which the Buddha rejected. Forthwith, he broke away from the original body, followed by some other monks. After a few years he died, as the Buddha had predicted when he was grievously ill before his death. He wanted to meet the Buddha and apologize for his conduct. Unfortunately, when he was being carried to the Buddha, he passed away on the way. The note there, references are found in many places of the canon. Vinaya 2, page 188, Vinaya 4, page 66, 335, the Dhammapada Commentary 1, page 126 and 147, and Guttara 4, page 402, etc.